Many people of Africa and African descent struggle with this one question: is it possible to be a Christian and leave out your African culture and heritage? Welcome to the Summon, the African Summon, where we connect you to Africa and African culture. Our guest for today is a man who has spent a great part of his life training leaders. At a very tender age, he started and founded the Cameroon Youths for Jesus, an interdenominational organization which challenged youths to give their lives to Christ and to serve God in their youth. Many of them watched him succeed at his undergraduate studies, postgraduate and doctorate studies, and followed his example. You would find them as head of departments, deans, professors, pastors, evangelists, and business owners around the world. Today, Professor Victor Mbarika is founder and chair of the ICT universities, which have branches in India, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Nigeria, and Cameroon. He has a passion for Africa and believes that its people can use their culture and heritage as a competitive advantage in responding to some of the salient questions the world has today. Please join me as we welcome Professor Victor Mbarika. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay,
congratulations on your great show.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege to have you. Before we get into our conversation, I would love to give you free rein. Talk to us a little bit about the country you come from in Africa, your tribe in particular, what you would like us to know about your origins.
Yeah, I'd like to start with my tribe even before my country, because that comes before my country. I come from this great tribe called Zangtabi. I was not honored to grow up there or anything, but my dad took me there a few times. It's in Momo Division in the northwest region of Cameroon, and that is where sits the paramount fund of the entire Metad land, Fond Tabi, and in the northwest region of Cameroon. Great weather. When you wake up in the morning, no pollution in the air, the water so clean. I mean, you can't get it with Tangi, Supermont, or any American type water that is bottled. So I have those memories, very loving. So that is where I'm from.
Wow. We are thinking about how to get there. So when you think about being African, who's an African to you and what does it mean to you to be African?
An African is someone that is connected to their roots. What are those roots? The roots of our ancestors. And when I talk about our ancestors as a Christian, I can see some people jumping that, oh, he's talking about the occult or going to pray at graveyards and things like that. Respecting the fact that our forefathers in Africa had some very, very great values that some of us never understood or even respected or appreciated before living a good part of our lives in the United States or in the Western world and seeing some of the ills of these Western societies. So getting that connection back, the connection of respect of elders, the connection of respect of human dignity, basic human dignity, the respect of not hurting people. Like in many African villages, if you killed a person, you were excommunicated completely from the village, you and your family, because they did not want a trace of your blood to continue in that village. They didn't do capital punishment, but they'll send you completely out of the village. That respect,
Human life.
Those are the things I think of, that connection back to our roots of those great values is what I consider an African, not only for us wearing this nice African outfit, but appreciating and using the great examples of our forefathers in Africa as we raise our children today. That to me is what is African. Nothing that we learn from the books we read today. Nothing that we can learn from CNN and MTV, that when they show Africa, they only show a bunch of animals running around. But those lessons we have learned handed down from our forefathers.
As I listened to you, I couldn't help thinking about the fact that in the West, there's a tendency to talk about their ancestors. It may not be called their ancestors, but that's precisely what people like Abraham Lincoln and all the other founders really are. But when we hear them, they sound like glorious. And when we talk about our parents who are dead, and we talk about past presidents, and we start thinking fetish. It's just a fundamental flaw in our thinking, that we could talk about the ancestors of another race and be so glad to praise them, and then our ancestors, we are ready to double murder them.
So we have monuments of them, of those ancestors, those American ancestors or British ancestors. There are monuments of
in
them
Africa,
in the Western world and in Africa. You know, I went to with my good friend Professor Waswa Balonio in Uganda. We went to the source of the River Nile, the Nile River, where it started from, and I saw one of the shocking things in my life. And some great, quote unquote, great British explorer's name was there, that they discovered the source of the Nile. So we can, and Africans would take tourists there. But when we talk about our own ancestors, it's evil, it's sinful, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Bob Marley says, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery.
Yes.
None but ourselves can free our minds. So what does it mean to be a Christian?
A Christian is a follower of Christ. In fact, the Bible says the believers were first called Christians in Antioch. That is basically what being a Christian is, and following Christ unconditionally with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. However, it does not mean, I know you asked what it means, but it does not mean rejecting your culture or rejecting the culture of the nations where you go to as a missionary. Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. The Bible did not say make disciples and change their culture. Their culture is their culture, okay? Unless there is something in that culture that is not going well or not at
odds with Christian values.
Something that's unless something that's at odds, yes, with what is in the Bible, not what we think are values, okay? But for example, I would say in many of our churches, when I was growing up as a Christian, there was even a belief that going to a traditional healer, a native doctor, was sin. Meanwhile, we have great herbs that could be used to treat many diseases, right? So the fact that that traditional doctor that knows about those herbs, a few of them, they come and tell you, oh, bring a big red cock or a black goat, and they do other
rituals,
occultic rituals. It doesn't remove the power of that God-given herb. Okay, so being a Christian is being a follower of Christ, but still respecting your culture and the great lessons we learned from our great ancestors lessons of respect, lessons about marriage, lessons about how you, you treat others. My goodness, for the most part, they taught the right things. My dad always tells me his father will remove his clothes and show him that, you see, there are no marks on me because I believe God will protect me. But I don't think his father ever read the Bible, but he believed in God and believed in God's protection.
Do you believe the Christianity and African culture are at odds? Is it possible to be a Christian and live and be an African living out his culture?
Africa is a creation of God Almighty, and when God created the world, there was nothing like Africa. He looked at it and said it was good. Even that region he created, he looked at it and said it was good. And God looked at it and said it was good, and in addition made it one of the richest, in fact, if not the richest in terms of natural resources in the world. God gave that. Okay? So being Christian is being African, I would say. It is being a part of God's creation, because God has gifted Africa with such great resources that he has not even given same in many other parts of the world. You know, some parts of the world can claim to have oil, but they don't even have water. They have a desert, like in the Middle East. We have it all. We have the oil, we have the gold, we have the oceans, we have the rivers, we have the hot weather, we have the cold weather, we even have snow in some parts of Africa, by the way. It snows in South Africa, right? I mean, so tell me, being African is being Christian is being African, in my opinion, because of the way God has endowed that continent. Now, what makes it at odds is not because of Christianity, it's about the people that preach Christianity. It's that they have so misinterpreted the word of God and added so much of their own personal opinions. Can you tell me why on earth Christians will say you should not drink palm wine, natural drink coming out of a palm tree that God supplies? Now, say you shouldn't drink it in excess, I will understand. But there are churches, many, and I know some people will try to crucify me for even saying this, but that's the beauty. When you get to a certain age, you don't really care what people think about you, right? They would crucify you for drinking palm wine. They'll say you are evil. But they will go to big parties where people are drinking red wine. And they'll be like, not big people than that. They're drinking red wine. Not big people than that. But let a Christian drink palm wine, they'll call him a drunkard, they'll call him all kinds of things. And something which has been proven to be very good for the eyes, by the way. But if taken in excess, you get drunk. That is the sin. The sin is not in drinking the palm wine. The sin is drinking more than you should. And the same people will go and eat things like pork, a lot of red meat. That is not so good for the body, right? They will take in a lot of sugars. That destroys the body. But then palm wine, which, yes, can destroy the body if you start getting drunk of it, sin, it's evil.
And Christians, it's common to think, let's drink sodas, Coke, and all the other tops and African drinks, which are really not made from natural drinks, maybe coloring or so. Not necessarily nice for the body either.
You know, one of my good friends, pastor friends, Reverend Pierre, Ngnangock, he preached a sermon saying that if you go and stand next to the Cameroon Brewery Company, the Brazilians, you will never see one orange entering that factory. You'll never see one pineapple entering that factory, but they are telling us they're producing top banana, the pineapple drink, top orange, the orange drink, top pamplemousse, the drink with lemon. But you will never see those fruits entering there. There are colorants, there are additives, preservatives put in there to taste the way it tastes. And we would spend a lot of money on them, which, by the way, drinking much of that is harmful. We know that, right? Much of that soda. But it's evil to have a villager climb a palm tree, come down with God-given palm wine. Hypocrisy is so rampant in the church today. And in a way, to not just hypocrisy, I think it's lack of education, which puts it at odds with or has the semblance of being at odds with our culture, with Christianity, between our culture and Christianity.
How important is it for Africans and people of African descent to know their culture and their history?
It is extremely important, and I am so passionate about this, especially as someone in the education arena. I'm very passionate about education at all levels. Our books need to be revisited, our textbooks. Okay, we are very proud to receive books from Oxford publishers, Macmillan publishers, but local African writers, we don't even value their work. We learn world history, European history, you know these things, and very little about our own history, our own people. We write the GCE O level, A level, which now I know they no longer call it the London GCE, but it's still fashioned after that colonialist GCE. Why are we doing that? We should have our own local Cameroon definition of how the secondary school and high school exams should be, where there can be an emphasis in understanding our culture, our people. You know, you definitely will not go to China and see them spending time only learning American history. They'll learn about their people, about their dynasties, you know. And so I think our educational system needs to address and I'm talking about from class 1, from primary school, from nursery school, need to address this and have storybooks depicting our African culture, not just storybooks with Africans on it and then still talking only European and American stuff. I'm developing a book with some of my younger colleagues called ICTs for African Secondary Schools, and all the examples, the case studies in the book will be about how African companies are using technology to promote their businesses, to run their businesses, so they can be familiar with it. I remember when I started university, we were doing case studies on McDonald's, and I was at the American University in Kenya. Yes, the American University, but how can I relate to McDonald's back then? I could not relate to hamburgers. You know, you and I, we grew up, we knew nothing about hamburgers.
At all.
Hamburgers are something of the last decade in Africa, right? In Cameroon especially. So we have to, it's important for us to learn that, but the issue is, how do we learn it? It should start from nursery school.
Having an education that is reflective of the African reality, that helps us leave school and be able to build our nations, not copy from any other cultures, but be able to take pride in our own, so to speak. And so if I said to you that African culture is fetish and primitive, what would you say?
Oh yeah, as an Africanist, a Pan-Africanist for that matter, I'll get very, very, very upset, very, very disappointed because in one way, uh, Africa is a continent of those fetishes. You have a minority of people that practice those fetishes. They are not like widespread as Africans would like to make the world know about it. There are a lot of very hardworking Africans making it very well in society without the use of any fetishes. It's just that people are so used to this idea of witchcraft and fetishes that even very hardworking and successful Africans, they'll say, oh, that one they Nyongo, that one is in some secret society. Meanwhile, they just work hard for their money. And people would not want to, they will give the glory of that, not to God, but to the fetishes. So what do the minority that actually practices fetishes do? It's just like what I said earlier. We have, for example, a great diversity of flora and fauna, plants that have good medicinal value in Africa. Okay, good medicinal value in Africa. But if a native doctor takes those plants, like I said earlier, and instead of just giving it for someone to drink and it treats their headache, they will say, bring a goat or bring red fowl, red cock, whatever it is. Then they start going into the fetishes, and you get well, and the glory goes to those things. But that's not stop us from promoting the good herbalists that are really using a gift of God given to them to have discovered plants that can help. I was mentioning right here on my table, and I did not prepare this for this interview. It so happens because I have it right on my office desk here. This particular herbal medicine called Gilbert, like the power of the man, and so on. It is something that bought in Cameroon. And what is it for? It was developed by Cameroon herbalists to treat COVID, and has been tested over and over and over, and has indeed treated many, many people of COVID. But we would wait until Pfizer creates medication for it, and that's when, everybody wants to go and buy that. But it's here, we have it. You know, the people in Madagascar, the country Madagascar, created one, and it went to nowhere. And what were we Africans complaining? Oh, the WHO is not recognizing it. Oh, the America's FDA is not recognizing it. So what? If they're not recognizing, what are your ministries of health doing? Maybe if your Ministry of Health will even respect these things enough to make people know that it works and show people how it has worked, maybe the world will respect us. Maybe they'll come, because when someone is sick, they'll look for everything possible to get them well. Maybe they'll start having American patients come to Cameroon, come to different African countries,
Very true.
Help with COVID and so on. They would not do that, okay? But we will have all this so-called professor of chemistry, professor of organic chemistry, professor of biology, all over our universities in Africa. They will not support this local herbalist because he probably does not even have a GCE O level. He probably is just some villager that put things together. So what does he know? What does he know? Well, to use that your big professorship, go and test this in your lab and show to the world that it has scientific backing. That way, maybe the World Bank, the World Health Organization or the FDA may see some scientific word to use and say, maybe we should look into that medication. Maybe these Africans, Black people have something to offer.
You know, it's interesting that a lot of medicine, is developed from herbs, you know, and it's always been intriguing to think that we're not willing to eat right. We're not willing to eat, just look at the African diet. It's so full of vegetables and it's so organically rich. But we are quick to bring in pizza and glorify that as the best thing to eat on a date, or bring in things which really aren't helpful for your body. And you look at it and ask yourself, are we really going towards Is this a better substitute? Is it more Christian to live these lives we're walking into? Or what do we really have in Africa that we are neglecting, calling fetish and calling primitive? And these things work.
Oh, absolutely. And they have a proven record. I went to one clinic in Yaoundé that that clinic has 100% success in treating COVID. 100, not one death that came in with COVID left dead. Not one patient, sorry, that came in with COVID left dead.
Wow.
They were all treated positively and and alive today, So that is on the side of calling fetishes. But if these creators had come with this bottle and they say bring some fowl or something, then they start messing up that knowledge that they have. And we have our own definition of primitive, like you said. Can you imagine if you have to go on a date with your African wife or someone you want to get married, and you say, oh, wow, let's go on a date in a nice Achu house. Let's go on a date in a nice fufu corn and jama jama restaurant. Well, it will bring problems in your marriage. It will bring problems in your relationships, right? But if you tell them, let's go to Ruth Chris Steak Restaurant, one of these big New York steakhouse. My man loves me. He's taking me to great places. Okay. And I know some people will say, well, it's because a lot of African restaurants are hole in the wall. They are not fine dining and so on. Well, then create fine dining African restaurants. Let people go there and enjoy the pride of our continent.
Wow. Well, that is.
In fact, I was thinking about it. Can you imagine a great figure in Africa like Nelson Mandela? Can you imagine they come up with a perfume called Mandela Eau de Parfum, Mandela Eau de Cologne? Will it sell as much as Chanel? Will it sell as much as Yves Saint Laurent? Will it sell as much as Calvin Klein? I bet you it will not. As much as Africans go around and they're proud of Nelson Mandela. You buy a Nelson Mandela perfume and go and give your man or your woman instead of Chanel or Yves Saint Laurent or Gucci. They will feel like you are insulting them. But these are great figures.
So it really has to do with the perception that we have of ourselves. We have told ourselves we are not good for anything. We don't amount to anything. And others see us as that. You know, if you don't think you're worth anything, why are you going around the world saying that respect the Black race? Why are you going around the world saying treat us as equals? You do not treat yourselves right. It's because we are Black. Ha! No, they're just doing what the only thing they see us do to each other. You know, and it's hard to find people of. Sometimes you watch other races and how they prefer themselves they'll prefer someone of their origin in giving them jobs or in the favor them in the purchase of a home. But an African would run to go stay in a Western environment or a Western community and run away from their own people. Oh, I don't want to be close to them. I don't want to. Well, it's saying something that your people are not worth it. I think we need to start looking back and rethinking the way we treat each other and what is ours. And once we can give value to those things, only then would we be able to say we are valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Now, if In Exodus 4:2, God asks Moses a question. When he's commissioning him, he asks, what do you have in your hand? And as Moses is asking all these questions and saying he's unable, God says, what do you have in your hand? If God were to pose the same question to the African today, what would that answer sound like? Or what should it sound like?
Yeah, I would like to talk about how it would sound like today and what it should sound like. How it would sound like today, a lot of Africans would tell you we have the Western world as our foreign aid donors in our hands. So if they give us, then we succeed. If they don't give to us, then we are nowhere to be found. We have the foreign aid experts, the foreign experts to come and do the work in Africa for us. They are better than African experts. That is what a lot of Africans will tell you. They will tell you about what they have now. If an African wants to show you pride that they have succeeded, they will tell you their suits come from their Italian suits. They will tell you their perfume are French perfumes, right? They cannot tell you they have a sweet smelling Miyanga perfume, right? They would tell you, in fact, I hear that they even sell red bottom shoes that women wear now.
Yes.
Louis Vuitton. Please, I'm not into fashions, but something like that. And they want that, right? They would be ready to spend so much money on buying an iPhone for over $1,000 instead of buying books or a laptop to improve themselves, because they believe just foreign things are better. So they will tell you about their connections with the foreign world. They'll tell you even about their connections with people in power. That is what they have in hand. That's what they think they have in hand. We forget what the answer should be. What we should know is that Africa is an extremely naturally rich continent. And I know this sounds like cliche because it's talked about all the time, but even people that talk about this, I don't see real action on their part to make use of those natural resources. We have so many Africans in America, Washington, New York, Houston, Atlanta. They sit in their bars, only criticizing Africa, only talking about how horrible the presidents are, how corruption is in those countries, right? But those people are not making it. They have come to America, they are in Europe and so on. They have gained a lot of knowledge. They don't want to go back and invest in their country because they have already made up their minds. Nothing can work. Nothing can work. Meanwhile, it's completely false. So some of us go there and we are well treated. And it's not like we had great government connections before. I'm a Bamenda man, but I've had a lot of help from government folks that are not from Bamenda. Okay. The country is open for development. So you have a lot of good natural resources in your hand that you can do a lot of things and create employment for a lot of those young people in Africa. And you have the brain. Why do I say you have the brain? Marilyn, you went to college here in the United States. I don't think you or any of us from Africa were ever intimidated in class in the United States by any white person. I know I wasn't. I know I did better than a lot of them. I finished my bachelor's, master's, and PhD, all 3 degrees in 5 years. Most Americans take 5 years to finish just the bachelor's. Okay, so I have never been intellectually intimidated by any white person, by any American, by any foreign person. So we have the brains, but how can we translate what we have gained as learning here in Africa? We have those natural resources, those opportunities are still there. And we will say, oh no, the government this, the government that. You know what? even let's assume that the governments all over Africa have done horrible things. We still have a whole lot of resources on ground to be able to start in our hand.
I
So
have
what we have in hand is what we have. We have it.
I have always thought that we cannot change a thing we are not a part of. You know, I mean, it's not
Yes.
even a thinking; it is a fact. If you want to be able to change the way any society is, get active in its leadership, get active in the decision making, and it's not by saying walking in and criticizing everything. It's first of all identifying yourself as part of them,
Yes.
loving the fact that you're a part of them. You'll gain people's ears, and then from there they can now start giving you a chance to voice your opinion. Often we make the error of saying, okay, we are lucky to be out here and that's them. We are not interested. It's all bad. But then if you have all these brilliant ideas, how are they going to be adopted? You're not part of the conversation. You're not part of helping. In fact, you're part of destroying, because now you have the way to help your people and you're not engaging with them. You know.
There,
Eh,
there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of money to be made in Africa, to sub-Saharan Africa. I do a lot of business in many African countries and other developing countries. There's a lot of money to be made, but also made, but at the same time, you contributing to the lives of people. You know, I run a consulting firm where we do a lot of IT consulting work with different African governments, and they always welcome us with open arms. You know, some pay, some don't pay, but we dwell on those that pay. You know, there are a lot of opportunities, and the Africans that are here in America and think that they have reached, they should be very careful, because their mates are doing some of their mates are doing way better than they are doing in America. I see it all the time. Okay, they are opening good businesses, successful businesses. They can show you at any moment $50,000, $70,000 in their account just sitting. In America, it's rare to find people that can sit, and even if they had an emergency of $5,000, they are able to get the money and do it. In fact, there are so many Africans in the US who say they can't travel to Africa because it's expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Traveling to Africa, I mean, you don't have to go first class. I think you can get economic class tickets for as low as $1,500, $2,000. But there are people that say they can't afford that. They can't afford to go. But then they feel lucky. They think it's luck that they're in America and better. There are a lot of opportunities. And I really want to encourage a lot of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to really know that we have the great resources of Africa in our hands. God has given that to us naturally. They still continue to discover oil deposits, like in Uganda, the recent years, they've discovered that in a lot of things that they're discovering underground in different parts of Africa. Such a rich continent.
Now, as a young man, you founded Cameroon Youth for Jesus, an interdenominational organization which continues to thrive today, and with the sole purpose of challenging youths in Cameroon to serve Jesus with their lives. And I'd like to know, what was your inspiration then? And how did you regard African culture at that point in your life and ministry?
At the age of 16, I read a gospel tract that spoke to my heart a lot. And for the first time, as a good Presbyterian, I got to learn what it meant to be a Christian. Of course, I grew up in church, the Presbyterian Church in Yaoundé. I think you were part of it.
Yeah.
So, and you had no choice. You had to go to church every Sunday, right? And go to Sunday school. But it took me up to the age of 16 by reading a gospel tract to understand what it meant to be a Christian. And I was in Form 4. I read that. I was touched. And I remember going back to my small room in my house. I can't forget that day, went down on my knees and trusted Christ for eternal life and became a Christian officially. And God put in my life some extremely successful people, starting with my own dad, and then people that were very successful materially, financially. I'm not just talking about successful in terms of being good Christians. People like the diplomat, Reverend Dr. Jim Wamboa, who was a Kenyan diplomat in Cameroon, Professor Emmanuel, Professor Zach Fomum, who is of late now. Those are the type of people God put in my life at that time, which I didn't understand. Why would God put these materially successful people in my life like that? And I understand now with the successes God has given me in different domains, that it was to humble me and know that, hey, whatever I succeed to do, the people he put in my life, he had already shown me that they have those material things. So there is nothing new I can show to the world but Christ and Christ alone. So at that age, I started sharing the gospel. I said, I want to share. I was questioning the Bible. People like Professor Emmanuel Gwan, who come all the way from University of Yaoundé and explain the Bible, explain the Word of God to me. I had a lot of questions. I think that's when God has started preparing me to be a professor, because I question things as a researcher. And so I started sharing. And people will come to the Lord, and I tell you, there are young people at that time who came to Christ. You are talking now. You know my age. You're talking 1990, 1989, 1990. That is 32 years ago, 33 years ago. I still get messages from people at that time, that far back, that are still abiding in Christ today. I got a message from one in Europe. They're doing well. So from that, many young people, I launched the Cameroon Youth for Jesus ministry, which a lot of young people that were part of it with me at the time have become very, very successful people in life, in ministry. And many of them are bishops, apostles, and titles that I don't support a lot of those titles, but they're still doing the work of God, and I admire them. Many of them have had their PhDs, university professors in many places. Many of them hold top government positions that came from that time. And I don't want to talk about this side, but I tell you, Marilyn, in those early days, I had a lot of abuse from even the church. A lot of people attacked me. What was I trying to show? What was I trying to do? Meanwhile, in my heart, I had no other desire but to preach Christ and Christ alone, and Him crucified. That was all my desire. And to this day, the ministry is very successful. It's all over in many, many places, and it's multiplied with a lot of those young people that were there. Many of them now have their own ministries. Yeah. So many of them have ministries now. And I'm so excited about it. What else could I have asked from God? So many of them are very successful in ministry and in their personal lives. So the thing, though, Marilyn, is at that time, so I believe now in the Lord, I had to get teaching. So the issue now I faced was the teaching, because the teaching of Christianity at that time, some of this was completely anti-biblical. They sounded spiritual at that time, but they were anti-biblical. A lot of people would preach and criticize educated people, to the point where I have preached in a crusade at CNPS in Yaoundé, saying PhD is nothing. Those of you with PhDs is nothing but poor, hopeless drunkard. PhD, poor, hopeless drunkard. I remember preaching things like that. We like preaching the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And I remember preaching that just in order to condemn being rich, not necessarily the story of Lazarus who went to heaven. But making it look like taking a wonderful Bible passage, which God is telling us dwell on his riches in him, with focusing on it seems it's evil to be rich. You know, um, I will give the example of a young man who just abandoned his education because his briefcase fell while he was traveling from one part of Cameroon to another, and he said that's a sign from God that he doesn't need to get to continue his education. But later on, I was seeing him advertising things like he's becoming an apostle. He'll be dedicated an apostle, and they'll lay hands on him later, and he gets a doctorate. Where do you get PhDs from laying on of hands? That is so abominable. And I've told them I will never call you doctor, ever, ever. Where is your thesis? What is your dissertation topic? How did you conduct the research? Now, a lot of young people have abused this, and they're going to get hands laid on them to get a doctorate. They don't want to go through the discipline of studying. Like the Apostle Paul, who is written a good part of the New Testament. Mm-hmm. The Apostle Paul, who studied under the school of Professor Gamalliel. Mm-hmm. Great intellectual, who could tell the Jews, I'm more Jewish than you. Who would go to the synagogue and challenge them. So, my view of Christianity has evolved over time. And evolving doesn't mean accepting it. It's okay to be financially successful. It's okay to be materially successful. It's okay to be health successful. Take care of your health. Things like that. We were not taught a lot of that. We were just taught, preach, pray, read your Bible, the longer you fast, the better. All those things are good, I would say someone like you, very nicely done your hair with your earrings, and if you use makeup, it would have been considered evil back then. Oh, they would lay hands on you to cast out demons of worldliness, right? I mean, the Christianity meant that you must have this nasty looking afro that was not combed, and long skirts that reached to your ankles. And even if you didn't have a change of heart, just have those, the outwardness, the outward presentation. There's something the Bible calls. There's a way the Bible calls that. They call them Pharisees. Okay. So that's my response to it.
Okay, it's just a beautiful testament to know that since I happen to have been part of your ministry and the work CYJ did, it's just nice to look back and see how some of the youths we worked with, Professor Julius esunge, Professor Eyabi Gilbert, Dr. Madison Ngafeeson, Dr. Ndamukong, the list is long. These men we preach the gospel, these youths we preach the gospel with, were challenged by the example you set. The more you raise the bar, the more we could see that this was where we could go. This is what we could we could become, and just a testament to say that your work through CYJ has just done a lot, and a whole lot of them have got churches. Dr. Richard Ferim, so many of them have churches of their own. So they are definitely following that lead of be excellent, pursue education, pursue excellence and prosperity in what you do, and keep the foundation of lead a life in the fear of God and a Christian life. Just wanted to take time to thank you for that leadership you set there. And today you are founder of the ICT University in Cameroon. There is one in Cameroon, you have the same institution in Uganda, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. It's kind of like all over the world. And I'd like to know a little bit about what your inspiration was for this project, and And why aren't you on the crusade grounds opening, setting up crusades and opening a mega church like every other Christian seems to believe? Once you're a Christian, you need to be opening a church.
Yes, I am opening a lot of mega churches, and I'm holding a lot of crusades by way of higher education. And that's why the vision of ICT University, which some may know, some may not be aware, is evangelism via higher education. We are creating the next generation of academic leaders that would be born again Christians. And we are in a good path for that. And we are seeing a lot of success in that. You have to realize a lot of great political revolutions started from universities, believe it or not. And that changed the face of nations. I want the evangelism to be impacted from higher education to the rest of the world. That is the direction of my vision for ICT University. And that's why I have mandated that every building of ICT University at the top must be an evangelistic center. We have students of all kinds of religions, but then they have now an opportunity to come into our evangelistic center and hear about Christ and grow. We have thousands and thousands of students that come through us. It is on us to make sure they get to hear the gospel as raw as it is. And we have created that environment by the grace of God. And I'm so proud that the first evangelistic center was dedicated after my spiritual father. I must call his name here, Reverend Jim Wamboa, and Reverend Dr. Jim Wamboa and his lovely wife, our mother, Dr. Lillian Wamboa. It was named after them for their role in my life and in the life of CYJ. So people come there. We were privileged that President Olusegun Obasanjo came and visited that chapel, actually.
Wonderful.
And asked that we should pray in that chapel. President Olusegun Obasanjo
came
in with the Minister of Higher Education, Professor Jacques Famendongo, and asked that Reverend Dr. Jim Wamboa prays in that chapel for them. So that chapel is already having great impact, having presidents of nations come there.
That's awesome.
So I really believe that the crusades, the traditional way we look at crusades and evangelistic meetings must continue. We continue those at CYJ. But in addition, we should start thinking about doing things where unbelievers can look at us and ask, how did you do this thing? This thing that we want, this professional success, this educational success, this political success you have, how did you get there? Then you can present Christ to them. They're coming to you for something to see. That is the direction I really think we should add. Again, don't stop the crusades, but we can add to the many crusades and the many prayer meetings and the many evangelistic meetings. Otherwise, we'll remain in the same place where our role as Christians is to come for all-night prayers, to pray for unbelievers that are in government, that are in education, that are leading, to pray for them to lead the way God would want things to be in the nation. We will leave the position, we will only be in the position of being the all-night prayer people, but we need to be inside to make change.
In other words, you're telling us we can be part of this. We have the giftings to be in leadership, in authority. Those things we think someone else should be changing. No, we are the people who should be there. You know,
yes.
if we just did the right things and got our education and had a desire to be part of government, we should be the ministers. We should be vying to be presidents of our nations, to effect the change we are looking for.
I've had the privilege to preach the gospel to people because they came to just ask me about my educational life, my business life, my professional life. And I say, if I tell you that I was this smart kid, I will be lying. Because if you meet people who knew me when I was in primary school or secondary school, I was nowhere close to the smartest. but I have Christ, and that made all the difference. And that's why I am where I am. So I've had the privilege to present the gospel to people that way.
Now, in a world where Africans are greatly marginalized by other races, including members of their own race, Africans tend to want to embrace a foreign Western culture, and would say the African people of African descent are perceived around the world as being of maybe second class, so to speak. What would you say we can do to change this perception?
Extremely important, Marilyn. That perception can and will never be changed by others but ourselves. We have to impose ourselves for the world to respect us. We have to respect ourselves for the world to respect us. You have to impose that respect. You have to. And it comes again to my view of Christianity, even doing things that will have people respect us as Christians, right? We don't have to, because of humility, sell ourselves short by going around preaching how poor we are in Africa and how we need help from only churches from outside. Oh my goodness. When most African churches want to have partners in America or in other parts, the number one reason is not for spiritual growth. It's so they can have money. So even the churches here will look down on you because you are like beggars. So to change that, we should start doing things that will make people give us the respect that we are due, and not always present ourselves as, oh, we don't have, we are poor. It's just sickening. It's just sickening, absolutely.
Just going back to what's in your hand, why don't you think of sending a gift to them? Why don't you think of reaching out to there's a lot Africa has got to offer. When people come, make a gift for them, take care of their needs, be the provider of the solutions they have. We have so many solutions to the questions and the challenges the world faces, but we seem to not see what's around us. We are unwilling to see that our clothing or even the value system we have in shunning divorce, those are things we sell to the world, which the world, there's a crisis in marriages, and those are things that Africa has solutions to, and is unable to see them as the answer which the world needs to be able to assert ourselves and say, listen, you guys are doing this wrong.
Yes. So you gave a perfect example. When Africans are in America and they have marital problems, they are even ready to go pay money for marriage counselors in America who may never have kept a marriage themselves, but have a PhD in psychology to counsel them. Well, they would not think of this old grandmother in the village who knows something about how to keep your marriage going. When Africans in America have issues, they call police on their husbands. They call social service because they think the government can run their marriage. We forget those values where our grandparents, our villagers, they know what it takes to preserve a marriage, and that's why we have less than 10% divorce rates in the area. Okay. But we will not think of that, but we'll be proud to say, oh yeah, we have a great marriage counselor. We pay $300 an hour. So, see, Marilyn, the fact is the average African is not proud of their continent. That is a fact. And that mindset, if it doesn't change,
nothing will change.
yes, if I know that you have a low mindset, you have put me in a position to use and abuse you the way I want to, and you will never even realize it. I just have to throw a few bones for you to bite and think I'm feeding you, and then I torment you and do whatever I want to do with you. There are European countries that would not survive today if Africa completely cut off from them.
True.
They would not.
That is
but unfortunately, these things would that's why I'm still insisting. I think something like this, your show, needs to go all over the world, needs to be promoted by many African countries, because this is the only way we can start that conversation. We can start that change, you know. And I can tell you, I would love to see this talk to. It's not like I know people all over the world, but with some of the presidents in Africa and so on, they need to push this in their media such that it can also go to other parts of the world. So this discussion on being proud to be African can be disseminated worldwide.
Any final words? What can we expect from you in the coming years? And any final words for the youths of Africa and the church in Africa in particular?
Well, in terms of our Africa pride, which is not pride like arrogance, okay, we must, at an individual level, learn to portray that pride to the world, not always having our hands out for assistance, but being able to even give. I don't go to any partnership telling them that give me anything. What I do with ICT University is we tell you what we offer for you. We tell you what we can do for you. And we start doing things for you to the point that at a certain point you feel guilty and start saying, hey, what can we give back to improve what this organization is doing? You know, we never just write to people, oh, give us money for this. ICT University, I don't have any financial partners. By the grace of God, it's been all money I've raised and run my institutions. I don't have any board, any shareholders. No, we've succeeded to do that. But now we have people that just come to us and they want to be a part of it. They want to finance this or finance that, or give us this or give us that. And we take it gladly, but we never appear to them as beggars, and we will never appear to them as beggars. Number two, we should stop blaming the government for everything. Governments don't even have the money, even if they portray it that way. Governments don't even have all the money they have to do the great things to develop our part of the world. Businesses should, individuals should. I was on CRTV for an interview, and they were here on that panel. There were a number of business people that say, oh, people are suffering in Cameroon because government is not giving jobs. I said, are you serious? How many of you on this panel have offered young people paid internships? You know, in Cameroon, most internships are not paid. They get these young people, they don't have any money, they have internships, they have to walk on foot to go to work to do their internship. They don't even give them taxi money. So we have to stop blaming the government. It's an easy cop-out to blame the government. And do you realize nobody's name is called government? Nobody. Go and ask the president of any African country, they will tell you their name is not government. You know, so we have to take we have to take our own responsibility. And you have all these people living in America, Africans here, insulting the government, but they are still earning their salaries of the job they are doing in Africa.
Oh dear.
They're still getting their salaries here. That needs to change, you know. But overall, what do I advise finally in your program? This program should go all over the world. That is just me, what I think. And I think this is where the solution begins.
You know, I happen to have followed your last visit to Cameroon, where you met with the organization is offering scholarships to help promote undergraduate studies and graduate studies in all the 10 province regions of that country. And I just thought that was brilliant initiative. I also learned of the fact that ICT University is incorporating IT into every field, every career field of study. So
Correct.
graduates of business do not graduate without the ability to apply, to use IT in their profession. I just thought that is just a fabulous initiative. So Professor, I just want to say to you, thank you very much. It was a complete honor for us to have you make time to be on our show.
Thank you, Marilyn. God really bless your show. I will make sure my staff shares your YouTube channel throughout the social media. If I will pay even for that sharing, and make sure that this show and your channel is promoted.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
There are no more excuses, oh Africa. You need to know your history. You need to know your culture. You need to know about your people. Have these conversations with your parents, with your uncles and aunties, with your neighbors, with your children. It is your competitive advantage and the only way you can be significant in the world. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and share. Until next time, I am Manondoa Kono saying, thank you for responding to this sermon.